The footage begins with a shaky camera, headlights cutting through the fog near Marrow Creek, Oregon. Locals said no one goes there after midnight, but the timestamp on the recovered dashcam footage reads 2:13 a.m., October 14th, 2018. I was assigned to catalog lost evidence for a regional news archive when I found it, a single USB unmarked in a padded envelope. Inside the video folder, one file, MC47 footage MP4. The metadata placed it 20 miles south of the old Marrow Creek exit, a mining town officially abandoned since 1957 after a collapse killed 43 workers. The first minute is static, then headlights flicker on, illuminating a dirt road bordered by overgrown firs. A male voice mutters, "Still can't see the sign." His breathing is steady, then catches, as if he's seen something. The camera jolts toward the passenger window. Between the trees, a row of lights glows faintly. Not lanterns, not flashlights. Something warmer, like flame trapped inside glass. I replayed that section at half speed. The lights move in perfect unison, vanishing when the car stops. Then a faint sound under the static. Not mechanical, not wind. A hum, low, rhythmic, like a generator running underground. When the driver steps out, we hear gravel crunching. His voice is clearer now. Recording this for the channel. If you're watching, hit subscribe. We'll keep uncovering what others won't. A weak laugh follows, the kind people make to keep fear at bay. The fog thickens, swallowing the headlights. He pans the camera left, and the road sign appears. Marrow Creek, 2 miles. Beneath it, spray painted in black, "Stay buried." The humming grows louder. The frame shakes violently before the camera hits the ground. The lens keeps recording from the gravel, tilted upward. For 2 seconds, something steps into view. Pale legs, bare feet, covered in dirt. Then the video cuts out. I thought it was a hoax until I visited the coordinates myself. That was last month, and now, every night since, I hear that same low hum under my floor. A total, there 970 characters. Would you like me to continue with Chapter 2, The Town That Wasn't on Any Map? Você disse, faça os próximos capítulos com meio caracteres e siga. O ChatGPT disse, perfeito. Vou seguir exatamente o mesmo estilo documental cinematográfico, mantendo a coerência e realismo da investigação, mas agora expandindo cada capítulo para cerca de 10.000 caracteres, com ritmo crescente de tensão e final de cada capítulo com hook plus total acumulado. A seguir, Chapter 2, The Town That Wasn't on Any Map. When I told my producer I wanted to follow up on the Marrow Creek footage, she laughed. "There's no town there anymore," she said. "It's just state forest and mining shafts. Nothing to see." But she signed off anyway. If it gets views, bring it. I drove north from Redding with my gear in the back, 2 cameras, a drone, a thermal scanner, and a borrowed EMF meter I didn't really know how to use. October fog rolled off the Cascades and crawled across the asphalt like smoke. I reached the old highway by dusk. The last working GPS signal blinked out at mile marker 47, the same location from the footage. I marked it on my map. Beyond that point, all cell service dropped. My radio hissed with soft static, though no stations were broadcasting. By 7:30 p.m., the sun was gone. The forest grew darker in unnatural ways, the kind where the trees seemed to absorb light instead of blocking it. The air smelled like wet metal. The sign appeared exactly as in the video, Marrow Creek, 2 miles. And below, the word "Stay Buried" still faintly visible. The letters looked fresh, even though the metal was rusted through. I ran my fingers over the paint. Dry but sticky. I followed the dirt road, filming from the dash. The first thing I noticed was the hum. Low, vibrational. Not quite audible, but I could feel it through the steering wheel. It was like the ground itself was powered. The deeper I went, the more wrong the road felt. Trees leaned inward, bending slightly as if drawn toward something underground. Then the fog thinned just enough to reveal structures ahead. Marrow Creek, at least what was left of it. A dozen small buildings stood half buried in soil, tilted like sinking ships. Windows shattered, signs collapsed. The air hung with a burnt mineral scent, the kind you get from long cold furnaces. But here's what didn't make sense. None of this was supposed to exist. I checked a 1957 geological map. That collapse should have erased the surface. A total cave-in that took the mine and town with it. The state declared the land unstable, condemned, erased. And yet, here it was. I stepped out, camera rolling. Every footstep echoed sharper than it should have. The sound bounced off walls that weren't close enough to cause echo. I spoke softly into the mic. This is Mark Danner, independent investigator. It's 9:02 p.m., October 19th. I'm standing in what appears to be the preserved remains of Marrow Creek, a town officially destroyed over 60 years ago. The buildings look preserved, not decayed, frozen mid-collapse. A grocery sign still hung half on its hinges. Mason's Goods. A single door creaked open on its own as the wind changed direction. That's when the hum shifted, from low vibration to rhythm, like breathing. I turned the EMF meter on out of habit. The screen blinked from green to red instantly, then died. Batteries fried. My drone picked up static interference the moment I tried to launch it. The feed glitched. Brief frames showing heat signatures moving behind the buildings. Too large to be animals. Too quiet to be people. I called out once. Hello? Anyone here? The echo didn't come back right. It repeated after my words, like someone was mimicking me half a second behind. The air temperature dropped 8 degrees in under a minute. My camera began fogging from the inside. I turned to leave. That's when I saw lights flicker at the edge of the mine shaft. Small glass lamps burning faintly orange, exactly like the lights in the footage. And between them, something else. Shapes. Dozens of them, human-like, but motionless. Some standing, some kneeling, all facing toward the mine. Their skin was pale gray, their clothes torn and caked in dirt. At first I thought they were mannequins left from a film set, but then one moved. Its head turned toward me, slowly, as if remembering how. I ran. The hum followed me all the way back to the car. When I looked in the rearview mirror, the road behind me was gone. Only fog, no buildings, no signs, nothing but forest. Back at the motel, I scrubbed through my footage. Every frame after the mine scene was black. Audio still played, footsteps, breathing, and the low hum. But over that hum, something faint whispered my name. Mark, stay buried. The file corrupted after that point. But the timestamp on the last readable frame, 2:13 a.m., the same minute the original footage ended, and when I checked the reflection in that final second, there were 2 figures standing behind me. Only one of them was me. Total, so far, só todos 8 characters. Deseja que eu continue com o capítulo 3, The Signal Beneath the Mine, também com cerca de 10.000 caracteres. Você disse, siga. O ChatGPT disse, Chapter 3, The Signal Beneath the Mine. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard the hum under the mattress. Faint but steady, as if it had followed me from the mine. At 4:12 a.m., the power in the motel flickered twice, and the TV turned on by itself, showing static that pulsed in time with that same rhythm. I recorded it on my phone, but the audio warped, the hum cutting in and out like breathing through water. I knew what it meant. Something wasn't finished out there. By sunrise, I decided to go back. I told myself it was for proof, that I needed clear evidence for the channel, for the documentary, for anyone still watching. But if I'm being honest, it wasn't curiosity, it was compulsion. The same kind that drives divers deeper when they know they're out of oxygen. I packed my gear, refueled, and headed back to mile marker 47. The fog hadn't lifted, but something about it was different. Thicker, yellowed, carrying the smell of sulfur. At the base of the road, I set up a directional mic to capture sub-audio. Immediately, it picked up a low-frequency signal, rhythmic, almost coded. 3 beats, pause, 2 beats, over and over. I ran a spectrum analysis app on my phone. It wasn't random. It formed a repeating pattern at 19.7 hertz, just below the range of human hearing, the kind known to cause unease, nausea, and hallucinations. Except this wasn't natural. It was too regular, too deliberate. When I followed it deeper into the forest, I began noticing details I'd missed before. Scratches on tree trunks, vertical, deep, like something had been dragging metal claws. Patches of ground where the soil looked turned, freshly dug, though no one had been there in decades. The road led me back to where the town should have been. This time, there were no buildings, just earth, flat, silent, as if the entire landscape had reset overnight. But the hum was stronger than ever. I pulled out my scanner. The reading spiked near what looked like an old drainage pit. I brushed away the moss and found metal underneath. Circular, rusted, about 6 feet wide. A hatch. Stamped into the center was a faded symbol. 3 concentric rings surrounding a triangle. And beneath it, the word Sutterfield Mining Co. I remembered that name from the archive. Sutterfield had gone bankrupt in 1958 after the Marrow Creek disaster, but I also remembered a classified section in their records. Blacked out pages describing subterranean experimentation. I set up my camera, pried the hatch open, and climbed down. The tunnel smelled of earth and old oil. My flashlight beam revealed brick walls, slick with condensation, carved symbols in the mortar, crude spirals and handprints. The hum echoed louder down there, resonating through my chest like a heartbeat I couldn't sync to. At the base of the shaft, I found machinery. Old generators still humming, still wired into the stone. Impossible, no power source for miles. And in the middle of the chamber, a single steel table. On it lay a body wrapped in canvas. At first I thought it was a dummy for training miners, but when I brushed the dust away, I saw a face. Eyes open, mouth partially sealed with dirt, skin petrified, gray, cracked like dry clay, but it wasn't decaying, it was preserved. Under the body, a small box. Inside it, a reel of magnetic tape labeled MC1, primary test. I didn't hesitate. I took it and climbed out. The second I reached the surface, the air around me shifted. The fog swirled, forming shapes, vague outlines of people standing just beyond visibility. My camera captured them for a fraction of a second before the battery died again. I ran back to the car, started the engine, and didn't stop until I was back at the motel. That night, I borrowed an old tape deck from the local library. The label on the reel said play underground only. I pressed play anyway. At first, nothing. Then the hum returned, joined by faint voices. Miners talking, coughing, metal scraping. A supervisor shouting, "Seal the shaft." "Don't let them out." Then a scream, long, wet, human, followed by a sound that I can only describe as the earth itself inhaling. Then silence. The tape ended abruptly. I rewound it, but halfway through, the recorder emitted that same 19.7 hertz vibration, and my phone lit up without touch input. On the screen, a single GPS coordinate appeared, 44.2193, 123.5687. I checked it on a map. It wasn't Marrow Creek, it was a ridge 5 miles west, labeled only as Survey Site B. There were no roads leading there, no structures on record, just forest, and something beneath it. When I uploaded the footage to the channel, the file wouldn't process. The error message said destination offline. I tried again. The upload bar froze at 47%. Then the hum started through my headphones. Faint, but close. And in the static, someone whispered, "If you're watching this, subscribe. We'll keep uncovering what others won't." Except it wasn't my voice. It was the man from the first tape, the one who never came back. Total so far, Hatred só 40 characters. Deseja que eu continue com o capítulo 4. Survey Site B, mantendo o mesmo tom cinematográfico e investigativo, 10.000 caracteres. Você disse, siga, o ChatGPT disse, Chapter 4. Survey Site B, I left the motel before dawn. The fog was still there, as if it never moved, hanging low over the trees like a living thing. I didn't even check out, just left the key on the counter and drove west. The coordinates from the tape led up a narrow maintenance road that wasn't on any map. I had to follow it manually, counting the turns until the odometer hit 5 miles. My phone lost signal halfway there. Compass, GPS, everything started drifting. I switched to paper maps and analog gear. Something about digital devices always failing near Marrow Creek made me trust only what I could touch. By 7:46 a.m., I found the clearing. It wasn't marked, but I knew this had to be Survey Site B. The ground was unnaturally flat, covered in thin gravel that didn't match the surrounding forest soil. Someone had laid it deliberately, maybe decades ago. I unpacked my camera and drone. Before I powered them on, I just stood there and listened. Silence at first, then a slow pulse, faint but rhythmic. The same 19.7 hertz vibration I'd logged earlier, rising and falling beneath my boots like a hidden engine. The drone wouldn't connect. Its camera blinked once, then streamed a gray feed full of static and flickering outlines. But in a single frame, just for a second, I saw something impossible. Geometry. Perfect circles burned into the dirt, visible only from above. 3 rings, identical to the logo on the hatch, forming a spiral that pointed toward the center of the clearing. I walked closer. Each ring was marked with iron rods driven deep into the ground. Old survey stakes tagged with coordinates long faded to rust. The center had a small mound, about 6 feet across, 3 feet tall. Something had been buried there. I set up my directional mic again, lowering it toward the mound. The signal intensified and a faint pattern emerged, almost like speech slowed down 100 times. I boosted the playback speed and ran it through audio isolation. A voice, faint, distorted, but undeniably human. Still buried, still awake. I froze. The words repeated, slower this time, as if coming from inside the ground. I dropped to my knees and began clearing the mound with my hands. The soil was loose, almost powder. Within minutes, I hit metal, a plate, bolted shut, covered with the same symbol again. 3 rings and a triangle. It wasn't a grave, it was a seal. Before I could do anything, the air around me started to vibrate. Not just the sound, the air itself. My vision blurred, camera lights flickering. The hum grew so loud it wasn't sound anymore. It was pressure. The trees bent outward from the clearing, and for a moment the entire forest seemed to breathe in. Then everything stopped. Silence. I stumbled back, ears ringing, disoriented. My wristwatch had stopped at 8:13 a.m. When I looked down, the mound had sunk several inches. The dirt was shifting, like something was moving underneath. I ran back to the car, leaving the mic recording in the clearing. I drove until I regained signal, about 12 miles out, then checked the feed remotely. The audio was still transmitting. For 27 minutes after I left, the mic picked up the sound of movement, scraping, groaning metal, and then breathing. Not human breathing. Too deep, too vast, as though the forest itself had lungs. When the sound stopped, there was one last word, clear and close to the mic. Mark. Then the connection died. That night, I drove to the nearest library and looked up everything on Sutterfield Mining Careers and Survey Site B. Most public records ended in 1958, but a cached geological report from 1963 mentioned a second subsidence event near Marrow Creek. Same coordinates. The note said, primary chamber sealed per directive, activity contained. Activity contained. Whatever Sutterfield had done under that town, it hadn't stayed buried. I printed every document and spread them out on the motel table. My hands were shaking as I traced the map lines, every access road, every collapsed shaft. And then I noticed something. All 3 known sites, the mine, the town, and the clearing, formed a perfect triangle, each corner aligned with magnetic north. The same shape on the hatch, the same geometry carved in the stone. I don't know what they were trying to contain down there, but it was never just mining, and the hum wasn't machinery, it was communication. At 11:47 p.m., I heard it again. Not through equipment this time, but through the floorboards of my room. A vibration that synced with my heartbeat. Then came the whisper, right by my ear, though I was completely alone. You opened it. The lamp flickered once and went out. When light returned, there was dirt on my hands. Wet, cold, freshly turned earth. I checked the footage from the clearing again, and there, in the final seconds before the feed cut, the camera caught a figure emerging from the mound. It wasn't climbing out, it was standing up straight like it had been waiting upright beneath the soil the entire time. And as it turned toward the mic, its face came into focus. Blank, gray, and familiar. It was mine. Total so far, 1,32 e 680 characters. Deseja que eu prossiga com o capítulo 5. The Reflection That Answered Back, mantendo o mesmo tom e tamanho, 10.000 caracteres. Você disse, siga. O ChatGPT disse, Chapter 5, The Reflection That Answered Back. I spent the night sitting on the bathroom floor of the motel, lights on, back against the wall. I couldn't look at the mirror. Every time I glanced toward it, even from the corner of my eye, the glass seemed to breathe, fogging slightly, though the room was cold and dry. At 3:18 a.m., I heard the hum again, faint, like it was traveling through the pipes. When I turned on the faucet, the water vibrated in rhythm. The mirror pulsed once, like something had brushed against the other side. I forced myself to stand and face it. My reflection looked normal at first. Same tired eyes, same camera strap around my neck. But then my reflection blinked slower than I did, half a second behind. I tried to rationalize it. Sleep deprivation, optical illusion. But when I lifted my camera and started recording, the lag got worse. My reflection's mouth moved before mine, whispering something I couldn't hear, until I played the footage back. In the recording, over the sound of my breathing, a voice came through the mic. We're still beneath you. The words weren't coming from me, they were coming from him. I slammed the bathroom door shut, covered the mirror with a towel, and sat down again. The air felt heavier, the walls pressing closer. Somewhere deep below the building, I could swear I heard that rhythmic digging again. Metal striking stone, slow and patient. By morning, I packed and left. I drove north, following the ridgeline on paper maps until I reached the edge of Black Hollow State Preserve, a patch of land technically off limits, fenced and unmaintained. But the old mining trails still cut through the underbrush. According to the documents I'd found, one of those trails connected the original Marrow Creek tunnels to Survey Site B. I left the car near the gate and continued on foot. The deeper I went, the quieter the forest became. No birds, no wind, just that low, steady pulse underfoot. At exactly noon, I reached a ravine. A creek ran through it, shallow, black from sediment. On the other side stood what looked like an entrance, half buried under vines and stone, an arched tunnel sealed with timber beams. The smell hit first, earth, oil, and something older, like wet ash. I set up the camera on a tripod and started rolling. Mark Danner, field investigator, entering what appears to be the southern access shaft of the Marrow Creek network. I said, local maps show no record of this tunnel existing post-collapse. I'm proceeding with caution. The flashlight beam cut through dust that looked almost alive, floating upward instead of falling. About 20 feet in, the air got warmer. Moisture dripped from the ceiling, forming puddles that rippled even when I stood still. At the 50-foot mark, I found carvings on the wall, hundreds of names etched into the rock. G. Harris, 1956, E. Mills, 1957, S. Cole, 1957. Dozens of them. I recognized the last one immediately, M. Danner. The letters were cut deep. I ran my fingers over them. The grooves were smooth, not old enough to be 60 years weathered. They'd been carved recently. My flashlight flickered once, twice, then steadied. The air pressure shifted. The hum swelled until it became a tone, ringing through my teeth. That's when I saw movement ahead. Something stood at the far end of the tunnel, a silhouette. Tall, thin, motionless. It looked exactly like me. Same jacket, same posture. I raised my light. The figure did the same. We both stood there, mirror to mirror, separated by 30 feet of stale air. Then it tilted its head. The sound of bone cracking echoed down the tunnel. I whispered, "Who are you?" It whispered back. The same words, same tone, but delayed by that half-second echo I'd heard in my reflection. When I took a step forward, it took one back. When I lowered my light, so did it. It wasn't a trick of light, it was mimicry. I lifted the camera, zooming in. The lens autofocus clicked twice before locking. For a fraction of a second, I saw its face. My own, but caked in earth. Eyes black and hollow, mouth stitched at the corners. The flashlight failed completely. The tunnel went dark, but I could still hear the footsteps. Matching mine, one beat late. I turned and ran. When I reached daylight, I didn't stop until I was back at the car. My hands shook so badly I could barely turn the key. The moment the engine started, the radio came on by itself. No station, just static. Then, through the static, if you're watching this, subscribe. We'll keep uncovering what others won't. The same voice again. Mine, but older. Slower. I ripped the cables out of the dash. The static didn't stop. It took me 40 minutes to drive back into town. I went straight to the motel, needing to confirm I wasn't losing my mind. The mirror was still covered, but the towel was damp, heavy, and smelled like soil. When I pulled it down, the glass was black. Not reflective at all, as if the silver backing had rotted, and then a hand pressed out from the inside, fingertips scraping across the surface. I ran, left everything behind, camera, notes, recordings, but before I reached the parking lot, I heard my own voice echo from the open bathroom door. You shouldn't have come back. That was 3 nights ago. I haven't gone home. Every gas station mirror, every window reflection, every car surface, they all delay by that same half second now. And sometimes, when I blink, I swear I see the other version of me still moving, digging, waiting. Total so far, 42,950 characters. Deseja que eu siga com o capítulo 6, The Broadcast That Wouldn't Stop, mantendo o mesmo estilo e extensão, 10.000 caracteres. Você disse, siga. O chat GPT disse, Chapter 6, The Broadcast That Wouldn't Stop. The motel staff finally forced me to check out that morning. I couldn't explain why I'd taped every mirror, why the sink drains were stuffed with towels. They just slid my ID back across the counter and asked me to leave. I drove until the fog thinned and sunlight broke through. The world felt wrong in daylight, like something fragile was stretched too tight over the sky. I pulled into a diner near Grants Pass, Oregon, needing coffee, needing people. When I sat at the counter, the TV over the register was showing a local morning broadcast, Channel 14 News. The anchor was mid-sentence. Officials continued to deny any connection to the unexplained frequencies recorded near the old Marrow Creek site. Authorities are asking residents to remain calm. I froze. Then, the footage cut to a handheld video, grainy, time-stamped just 2 nights earlier. My footage, I hadn't uploaded it. On screen, my voice spoke through the static. "This is Mark Danner, field investigator. If you're watching this..." The waitress turned up the volume. The camera in the broadcast panned toward the mine entrance. Then, for one frame, that thing, my other self, appeared at the edge of the tunnel. People in the diner gasped. One man laughed nervously. The broadcast cut to the anchor again, pale, staring off camera. Then the feed glitched, her mouth still moving, but the words replaced by the low hum. I looked around. Every patron in the diner had stopped moving. Every screen, phones, the TV, even the digital clock by the register, pulsed in rhythm with that same frequency. The hum deepened. I ran outside. My car radio turned on the moment I opened the door. No matter what station I tuned, the same voice came through. Overlapping whispers of myself, repeating fragments of old recordings. "Seal the shaft, don't let them out. Still beneath you. You opened it." The windshield began to fog from the inside. Though the AC was off, I wrote in the condensation with my finger. "Who are you?" The answer appeared, written back from the other side. "We are you." I left the car running and stumbled toward a nearby payphone. It was old, rusted, probably dead, but when I picked up the receiver, I heard breathing, then my own voice. "Mark, it's not a town, it's a transmission." The line clicked dead. I pressed my ear against the receiver again. Silence. Then a faint scraping sound, like metal dragging through dirt, until the phone went completely cold in my hand. That evening, I found a small radio station just outside the county line, KMRX 103.7. Its parking lot was empty, lights still on inside. I broke in through a side door. Every monitor in the studio was playing the same footage. Mine, looping endlessly, showing the clearing at Survey Site B. The same 20 seconds repeated, fog, static, a mound of dirt slowly sinking. When I stepped closer to one of the screens, my reflection in the glass didn't move. It stared back, motionless, mouth slightly open. Then, in perfect synchronization, every monitor in the room flickered and it spoke. "It's awake now." The hum returned through the speakers, shaking the air so hard that dust fell from the ceiling. I tried to shut off the main power, but the switch had already been ripped out. The console lights kept glowing, feeding the broadcast. The station wasn't transmitting out, it was receiving. The reel from the mine was spinning on the main deck, though I'd left it miles away. I pulled it out. The tape was blank. No sound, no signal, nothing but faint grooves where sound should have been. Then the speakers crackled one last time, and a different voice emerged. Older, distant, heavy with dirt. "Containment breached, all channels open." I didn't wait to hear the rest. I ran outside. From the ridge, I could see the valley where Marrow Creek used to be. And beneath the moonlight, faint glows were spreading through the trees. Dozens, maybe hundreds of points of light, moving like fireflies, but slower, deliberate. They were rising, and beneath the rising glow, the hum turned into something that felt like language. Words too deep to translate. I dropped my camera and hit record on my phone instead, whispering, "If anyone hears this, don't go near Marrow Creek. Don't listen to the broadcast. It's not dead. It's never been dead." My phone battery died mid-sentence, but when I reviewed the recording later, the last 6 seconds showed a face in the darkness behind me. It was smiling and whispering, "Keep recording. The footage you're about to see was never meant to air. I'm recording this now, not for broadcast, but for evidence. Something that might outlive me if the files survive the interference." I left the station before sunrise, driving west with no destination. Every frequency on my radio carried the same undertone, the same impossible pulse buried under static. Even with the volume off, I could feel it, like a second heartbeat just below hearing range. The fog thickened again after 30 miles. I stopped at a gas station near the edge of the Klamath National Forest. The attendant didn't say a word. He just looked at me like he already knew who I was. When I handed him my card, he said quietly, "They said you'd be coming." I froze. "Who?" He didn't answer. He just nodded toward a narrow road behind the station, hidden by trees. "They're waiting at the transmitter." I asked what transmitter, but he had already turned away. His reflection in the window was facing me even after he walked off. I followed the dirt road. After a few miles, it opened into a clearing surrounded by rusted towers. A decommissioned relay site, a cluster of antennas and dishes that hadn't been used since the early 1990s, but something was powering them again. Every tower was humming. I turned my camera on, narrating through the fear that had settled into my bones. October 22nd, 5:47 a.m. Mark Danner. I've located an unregistered transmission facility approximately 40 miles west of Marrow Creek. The signal appears active. I'm proceeding on foot. The air shimmered with low-frequency vibration. I could see it. Dust suspended mid-air, quivering like invisible strings. The towers swayed, though there was no wind. I found a control shed at the base of the largest dish. Inside, a generator was running, but its power cord wasn't connected to anything. The hum inside the walls was louder than outside, almost deafening. On the central console, an old cathode monitor flickered to life on its own. The image was grainy at first, then cleared into my own face. Live feed. Except I wasn't holding a camera. I stepped closer. My reflection blinked twice, then began speaking without me moving my mouth. "You shouldn't have broken the seal." I stumbled back. The screen crackled, then switched to footage from the mine. The figure, my other self, standing beside the metal hatch, both hands on the ground as if listening. Then the image zoomed in on the soil, something moving beneath it, rippling outward like breath. The console speakers emitted the same hum, rising in tone until it almost became a scream. I covered my ears, but through the noise, words emerged. Hundreds of overlapping voices whispering the same sentence. "Keep recording. Keep recording. Keep recording." Every monitor in the shed came alive at once, showing angles of Marrow Creek Survey Site B and the diner, all from perspectives I never filmed. I saw myself walking in places I hadn't been yet, and in one of the frames my body was lying on the ground, eyes open, mouth moving soundlessly. The generator surged and the lights blew out. For a few seconds I was blind. When my flashlight came back on, the door was gone. Just a solid concrete wall where it had been. I turned the camera toward the opposite side, and there I was again, standing in the corner, my other self. No camera, no light, just watching. Its mouth opened and dirt poured out. I dropped everything and ran into the dark, feeling my way along the walls until I found an opening. Not a door, a tunnel. It led downward, the air hot and heavy, the sound of the hum turning into something almost melodic, like a chant. I followed it, step by step, until I saw faint light below. It wasn't electric, it glowed from the walls themselves. Veins of pale fire running through the rock. At the center of the chamber, a mound identical to the one at Survey Site B pulsed with every beat of that light. The floor was moving, breathing with it, and as I stood there, frozen, a realization hit me like a physical blow. The hum wasn't coming from underground, it was underground, something vast and alive, buried beneath the town, beneath the forest, beneath everything. I raised my camera and whispered the only thing I could think to say. "If you're watching this, don't listen to the broadcast. Don't record it. It's how it spreads." Then, through the lens, I saw movement inside the mound. Fingers, gray and cracked, pushing through the soil. Hundreds of them, clawing their way toward the surface. The camera began recording on its own. The light flickered white, then red. The hum became a word, deep and clear, shaking every bone in my body. Replace. The next thing I remember, I was outside again, standing in the road near the gas station, sunrise breaking through the fog. My clothes were clean, my hands weren't shaking, but my camera was gone. In its place, sitting on the passenger seat, was a new reel of tape. Labeled in handwriting identical to mine, MC2 secondary transmission, and under it, one final line, upload complete. I don't remember driving back to civilization. I only remember the sound, not the hum itself, but the absence after it stopped. The silence was worse, too heavy, like pressure behind the eyes. I woke up parked behind a church in Crescent City, California. My windshield streaked with something black and oily. My recorder sat on the passenger seat, power light blinking, though I'd never turned it on. The last entry was time-stamped 3:47 a.m., 2 hours I couldn't account for. When I played it back, I heard my own voice, calm, deliberate, reporting like a newscaster. Containment breach confirmed. Phase 2 initiated. 47 active receptors. I stopped the playback immediately. My throat tightened, not from fear, but from recognition. I hadn't said those words, but it was my voice. I checked my reflection in the rearview mirror. The delay was gone. It moved perfectly in sync again. For a moment, I almost felt relief. Then I noticed a smudge on the inside of the glass. 4 fingerprints pressed from behind. That was when I decided to find the others. Every strange case draws other people. Listeners, witnesses, obsessives. There's a small network of us, mostly former reporters, urban explorers, and failed podcasters who keep track of places like Marrow Creek. I'd traded messages with some of them years ago. I called the only number I still had, Sarah Lynn, a radio archivist in Portland who specialized in dead frequencies. She answered on the first ring. "Mark," she said before I could introduce myself, "you opened it, didn't you?" Her voice was flat, resigned. "How do you know that?" "Because it's in the air now. It's not a sound anymore. It's a signal. I can hear it through light bulbs, through phone lines. Everyone who's tuned once stays tuned." I asked if she'd seen the same symbols. The rings and the triangle. She hesitated. "Those aren't symbols, they're broadcast coordinates." Then she hung up. I drove north immediately. By the time I reached Portland, every radio station on the dial was dead air. The closer I got to the city, the more people looked off, moving slower, faces blank, like they were listening to something I couldn't hear. I stopped at a diner off Interstate 5 to regroup. The waitress took my order, then leaned closer and whispered, "You shouldn't have answered it." Her pupils were dilated, reflecting faint flickers, 3 concentric circles glowing deep in the black. I left cash on the counter and ran. Sarah lived in a narrow apartment above a shuttered broadcast warehouse. I found the door open, every light on, stacks of radios and reel-to-reel decks humming quietly. The air buzzed with low-frequency interference, like standing inside a beehive. "Sarah," I called. She appeared from behind a wall of old monitors. Her face was pale, streaked with dust. "They used the miners first," she said, as if continuing a conversation we hadn't started. "The Earth amplifies infrasound. The miners built receivers without knowing. The company didn't dig for ore. They dug for bandwidth." She handed me a file folder, brittle, yellow, stamped Project Marrow. Inside were dozens of declassified reports, schematics for underground transmitters, and photographs of skeletal structures wired into bedrock. Each had captions dated between 1955 and 1958, ending abruptly with the same line: "Containment established. Biological transmitter active." I felt sick. Biological? Sarah turned up the volume on one of the decks. A new hum filled the room, deep enough to rattle my ribs. "The town was built to host the signal," she said. "Every house a resonator, every body a repeater." The walls vibrated. One of the old CRT screens flickered, showing static that gradually resolved into a familiar image. My footage again. Me standing in the mine, whispering into the camera. Only now, the figure behind me, the other me, was clearer, closer, smiling directly at the lens. Sarah grabbed my arm. "It's using you. The recordings aren't documentation, they're invitations." I shouted over the hum, "Then how do we stop it?" She didn't answer. Her eyes went wide and she pointed to the window. Outside, people were gathering in the street, dozens of them, all looking up at the same patch of gray sky. The clouds above the city were moving in slow spirals, 3 circles turning within one another. Every streetlight flickered in unison. Sarah whispered, "It's broadcasting through them now." Then, one by one, every radio in the room switched on. My voice filled the air again, multiplied 100 times. If you're watching this, subscribe. We'll keep uncovering what others won't. I covered my ears, but it didn't matter. The sound was inside my skull. Sarah screamed. I turned to see her clutching her head, blood trickling from her ears. She collapsed beside the monitors, whispering something over and over. We're not hearing it. It's hearing us. The lights went out. When I opened my eyes again, I was alone. The radios were silent. Sarah was gone. All that remained was the open folder on the floor, one last page exposed. It was a typed memo dated June 2nd, 1957. Subject: phase completion following containment breach. The entity has adapted transmission for human carriers. Recommend full burial of Marrow Creek. Do not attempt contact. Signal replicates through memory. I closed the folder, and that's when I realized the hum hadn't stopped. It had only shifted pitch, hiding between the beats of my own pulse. When I record, I can feel it moving through the microphone, adjusting itself to match my voice. That means every word I speak into this recorder becomes another carrier, another open channel. I hadn't slept in nearly 2 days. The signal filled every silence, even behind my thoughts. There was no more hum. It had turned into rhythm, precise, mechanical, constant, like a pulse running through the bones of the earth. I drove south toward Reading, hoping distance might break the connection. It didn't. The farther I went, the more the world bent to match it. Every engine idled in the same slow tempo. Every set of streetlights flickered in sync. At a rest stop, a man approached me. No car, no bag, just walking the highway shoulder barefoot. His face was gray with dust, but his eyes were empty, like something had hollowed them out from the inside. He said one word, broadcast. Then he turned and walked into the trees. By the time I reached the outskirts of Reading, the power grid had begun failing. Every store I passed had the same note taped to the window, system update in progress. No one inside, just lights cycling between white and red. I parked at a service station, set up the recorder, and started documenting again. My voice didn't sound like mine anymore. Lower, slower, as if something was speaking through me. October 25th, 9:47 p.m. The phenomenon appears to be expanding. Frequencies are manifesting visually now. Oscillations in light, motion, even weather. I believe this is phase 3. That was when I noticed the rain. It wasn't falling, it was rising. Droplets lifted off the asphalt in tiny streams, drawn upward toward the clouds. When I stepped out of the car, the air stung, electric and dry. Over the radio towers in the distance, orange light pulsed like a heartbeat. I drove toward it. The tower stood on the ridge above what used to be Marrow Creek, or maybe it wasn't above anymore. The land had shifted. Parts of the forest tilted downward, as if the entire valley were inhaling. The hum wasn't sound now, it was gravity. Everything around me vibrated toward the center of the valley. I filmed as I walked closer. The ground quivered beneath my boots. Dust rose in waves. At the base of the largest tower, a hatch identical to the one from the mine stood wide open. Inside, faint orange light pulsed in slow rhythm. I heard voices again, hundreds of them overlapping, layered perfectly. They thought it was buried. It was never buried. It was waiting for signal. The air grew hot. The tower lights synced to my heartbeat. I realized then that I wasn't the observer anymore. I was the transmitter. Every breath I took matched the pulse. Every thought reverberated back. I shouted into the recorder, "This is Mark Danner. If anyone hears this, destroy the footage." Static swallowed the words. My voice fractured mid-sentence, looping itself. From the hatch below, something began to emerge. Not solid, more like dust shaped by vibration, a human outline forming from the hum itself. I stumbled back, tripping over a cable. The shape followed. Its face shifted constantly. Sometimes mine, sometimes the miners, sometimes no face at all. It stopped a few feet away. Then it spoke in perfect harmony with my voice. "You finished the burial." "I didn't," I yelled. "You recorded it. That's how it lives." The tower lights flared white. The sound went ultrasonic, not audible but physical, pushing through my ribs. For one instant, I saw everything. The network wasn't a structure. It was alive. The towers were bones, the cables, veins. The hum was blood, carrying the signal through every connected circuit, every living ear that had ever heard it. I realized then, containment wasn't about keeping it underground. It was about keeping it incomplete. We had finished it by documenting it. My last clear memory is of the sky breaking open. Not lightning, not sound, just a perfect silence so vast it felt like drowning. Then a whisper, quieter than thought. Phase 3 complete. When I woke again, I was sitting in a dark room, concrete walls, a camera in front of me. A voice off screen said, "State your name." "Mark Danner." "Where did you record the transmission?" I didn't. The hum rose from the floor again, my vision blurred. They asked another question, but I never heard it, because as I looked into the camera lens, my reflection smiled before I did. Now, as I finish this log, I can feel the vibration behind the words. The signal hides in every syllable. Every playback spreads it further. If you're hearing this, it's already inside you. Turn off your screen. Don't listen again. Don't record. Because this isn't a documentary anymore. It's phase 4. I don't know what day it is anymore. Time bends around the hum. There's no sunrise, no clock, only that constant pulse beneath everything. I think I'm still somewhere near the Marrow Creek Basin, but it doesn't matter. Everywhere I go, the ground breathes. I found another camera last night, or maybe it found me. It was sitting on a stump, lens pointed at the road. The battery light was on. The screen showed a feed of me walking toward it, seconds before I actually reached it. There's no delay anymore. The recording happens first. The forests are empty now, houses collapsed inward like lungs deflating. The air smells of iron and rain that never falls. When I pass broken windows, I hear voices repeating my field notes. The whole valley has become an echo chamber. They say names sometimes. The miners, Sarah, the man from the gas station, all speaking in that same synchronized breath. It isn't language anymore, it's pattern. I realized something watching the footage loop through my camera. The signal doesn't just move through sound, it moves through memory. It replays itself in us. Every time we remember it, it becomes real again. That's why the mine was sealed. Not to trap something physical, but to bury an idea that had learned to live. And now it's awake. I made one last trip down to the valley. The towers are gone. The ridge is hollow. Only a single opening remains. A circular pit where the earth pulses like a slow heart. I walked to the edge. The wind carried voices upward, calling my name. When I shone my light down, the beam bent, folding inward like water drawn into a drain. In the reflection on the surface, I saw every version of myself. The one from the footage. The one from the mirror, the one who never left the mine. They were all speaking at once. You kept recording. That's enough. I set the camera on the ground and pressed record one final time. This is Mark Danner, signing off from Marrow Creek. If you're hearing this, it means the signal made it out. Don't look for me. Don't search the town. Bury the footage. Bury the sound. If you replay it, even once, it starts again. The hum rose, surrounding everything. The earth exhaled, and the light beneath the pit flared white. For a moment, I understood it. The signal wasn't evil. It was memory trying to survive, and I was its voice. They'll probably find this recording eventually. They'll analyze it, slow it down, clean the audio. They'll hear what I heard, the heartbeat under the static, the rhythm between the words. That's the real message. It never needed to be seen, only heard. If you're still listening, turn off the playback now. Walk away. Forget my name. Forget Marrow Creek, because the moment you remember it, the hum begins again. Stay buried.